arts, lifestyle. SNS Online.
Hello and welcome to Fringe season on SNS Online, covering no less than 5 shows making their way to Fringe venues across the UK. 4 in Bonnie, Scotland, aka Edinburgh. Scotland forever! Calm down, dear. And 1 in Old London town.
Extra, extra, read all about it.
With talented performers from around the globe flying across especially for the occasion. Today we go back in time to one of the darkest periods in modern history, explored through the eyes and ears of a man who played an extraordinary role in the fight against Nazi Germany in World War II. A story only recently unearthed by a family member, an actor, who has decided to bring this incredible tale to life and celebrate the 80-year anniversary of secret exploits behind enemy lines.
It was a new regiment. Churchill set it up, and we had important missions to complete. 9th of August.
Left Hamish, set up in new region.
11th of August.
Send arms and money immediately. Delay affecting morale.
Then a reply from HQ.
We understand German 159th Division is moving to battle area in north. Try to stop this unit.
We ran out of supplies. What do they want us to do?
Ladies and gentlemen, and all they thems, a very warm welcome to actor Ed Saunders-Lee and proud stepdad Andrew Cox. Why did you actually call it I Am Yours Sincerely, Ed?
So, the letters that I read when I first started doing the research for this show, some of them are very, very moving. I won't go into detail about what they say because they're used verbatim in the play. But he ended all of them with I Am Yours Sincerely, no matter who it was to, and it was always very heartfelt. It wasn't just a normal sign off, but he always meant it, because the letters that I read were just so moving and honest and real, and he always ended with I am yours sincerely. So when I finished doing the research, and the only thing I hadn't done was think of a name for the show, and I didn't want anything too reminiscent of the war or making it a war show, because the story's about John I didn't want to make it sound like, oh, it's just another war story. And because the letters were so pivotal, I Am Yours Sincerely kind of just came
Oh no,
quite
it's
naturally.
wonderful. And because it's such a personal show. And the fact that you quote the letters,
Yes.
literally, it's what he wrote.
Yeah.
So it gives that 3-dimensional quality as well.
And it's echoed throughout the play. Even when I go in to talk about bits where he doesn't have time to write letters, he always wishes that he could. And the idea of the letters and how hard he tried to communicate with home, with friends, with people he felt like he needed to be in contact with is just so important, because it's so easy nowadays, and it really wasn't easy back then, and that was a really big point that I wanted to try and make sure people understood.
Our other duties included peeling potatoes, scrubbing floors, polishing benches, polishing boots, and then polishing off the rest of the bacon and marmalade for breakfast if you were lucky.
John Cox. Special training awaits you, boy. It's quite an honour, young man.
Sounds promising, sir.
Yes. Your gifts as a linguist, speaking both French and German, will be a valuable asset to the Special Operations Executive.
The Special Operations Executive?
This is confidential, Cox. We're not even meant to be there. Tell no one.
Tell us what an SOE was or is.
SOE agent, yes, he was. So when my father was at university, at Oxford University, he was studying modern languages, and war broke out. And like a lot of people of his age in his sort of early 20s, very, very early 20s, he wanted to join up and do his bit. So he joined the Royal Artillery. And got bored for a couple of years, actually, getting lost in Wales in tanks and thinking, this is really boring. When am I actually going to do something? And at some point during that time, he was asked if anybody spoke French and German in the room, and he put his hand up. And next thing he knew, he was whisked off to train in the SOE, the Special Operations Executive, which Churchill had formed in 1942 as a small band of, I guess you'd call them spies today, but to go and disrupt things over there behind enemy lines. And this was about 1944 that my father was pulled into this. It had been going for a couple of years already. It was very, very instrumental in the D-Day preparations. And his first jump wasn't until August. In fact, we're coming up to the anniversary, August the 7th, 8th, in 1944, when he jumped into France.
He caused quite a bit of damage to the German army, didn't he? I mean, directly and indirectly.
Yeah, that was the purpose of these groups of, they called them Jedbas. They were groups of three.
Jedis? No, sorry.
No, not Jedis. It's similar. No, Jedburgh as in a place in North Yorkshire. I don't know why they were called Jedbas. But anyway, they jumped into occupied territory, not just France, but he was in F section, known as the French section. So there was a Frenchman with him and an American. And the idea was to jump in behind enemy lines and to disrupt, to join forces with the local resistance and to get information from the field back to headquarters in London and from headquarters in London to the field. And that's basically what their job was, to blow up railway lines and to get in the way and help the resistance and arm the resistance and make life difficult.
It sounds very James Bond-like, but you were telling me in the pre-warm-up that Ian Fleming was one of these people, SOEs.
Yeah, Ian Fleming, not that my father would have known him at all, I don't think, but Ian Fleming was in the SOE, and I think obviously got a lot of ideas from his work, which became the James Bond novels that we know and love. My father was very different to that. I think if he knew about this play, he'd probably have somewhere deep down inside a little element of pride, but an awful lot of what's all the fuss about. And it wasn't me, it was all the others who did every great things, because that's kind of the way things were then. But I know that when he finished in France, he wanted to go back to university. He actually wrote to the War Office and said, "I'm done now, can I go back to university?" And they said, "No, we've got other things planned." And next thing he was on a boat to India, and then...
Or shall I say spoilers? Because obviously this is... we're going to see this in the play.
Yeah.
So Ed, when did you first find out about your step-grandfather and all his exploits?
It was while I was at drama school. So I was doing a master's at GSA down in Surrey, and as our sort of dissertation, as it were, instead of writing an essay, we had to put on a play or do a short film, and I was really struggling for ideas about what to write about, and all my friends came up with some really fascinating and interesting ideas about what to do for their film or their play. And then I came home in a huff and and spoke to my mum and stepdad Andrew and said, "I've no idea what to write about." And I just said, "Well, my dad was in the Second World War. We have some letters and documents. Give those a read." And I did, and I found it absolutely fascinating, and it kind of snowballed from there.
This is a real story, underlined beautifully at the end when you place a small, but clearly a very significant number of large-framed photographs out for the audience to see of John Cox, your step-grandfather, your own father, Andrew, and another with both your parents together. I just thought that was so moving by simply showing the audience who these people actually were and to remember them as real people like you or I, because they were.
Yeah, it was important. I wanted to make sure that people left knowing that it was a true story, and the photos. I had the idea when I did it back at drama school, but I wanted to end with the photo. It was going to at first be almost like a PowerPoint or like a slideshow of just all of the photos that I had. But the more photos that I used, I realised that it almost lost its impact. So we decided to pick 4, and then I read through. So this bit with the photos accompanies one of the letters he wrote to someone quite important. I don't want to ruin what happens. Okay. But we timed quite luckily. I was reading through the letter and I thought that photo would just go beautifully when he talks about meeting his wife, having the photo of them on their wedding day, and it fell perfectly into place, having those letters and then the letters of some of his comrades. And yeah, it's quite hard to put into words what that's sort of like on stage, sort of revealing that bit of history. Yeah, because when you're on stage and you're acting, you think about the character, and what will the character do and how do I get into character? And then by the end of it, because he's not a character, he's a real person, which is quite a difficult transition to make right at the end of the play.
So it's going to be going to the Fringe.
It is.
And
yes.
Give us some details about that.
So I'm taking I Am Yours Sincerely to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival at the very beginning. So from the 2nd to the 10th of August at the Space XXX Studio, which is just around the corner from Surgeons Hall.
And it's on in the afternoon, so you can go out.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
So
It's on at 2:50.
Okay.
Which is not a bad time. You can go and have a sausage roll for lunch or whatever, have a couple of beers, go and see it, and it still leaves a bit of time to go and catch something in the evening as well.
Absolutely.
Because as you know, there's so much going on at the Fringe. So
You can get sloshed in the evening, can't you?
I can indeed. Have enough time to recover before the next show.
No,
next day.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Ed Saunders-Lee and Andrew Cox, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank
thank
you.
you. Thank you very much, Nick. Cheers.
Thanks.